L needs space-time crystals now. Do you have any suggestions? Ruler Starfield? Lin Feng came before Ruler Starfield and said directly. He cultivated in seclusion in the abode provided by Ruler Starfield for a period of time, and made some attempts. His river of spacetime was indeed unable to break free from the suppression of the entire Origin Gate spacetime rule. Hence, Lin Feng could only choose to increase his comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Relying on illusory comprehension alone was actually useless. Hence, Lin Feng also thought of the spacetime crystals. This was the correct method. This was because be it those voidwalkers who had comprehended the principle of spacetime, or those who had not, they were all trying to use spacetime crystals to comprehend or enhance the principle of spacetime. Lin Feng was naturally no exception. Oh? Chaos Ruler, are you in such a hurry? Actually, there's no need to be in such a hurry. You have just arrived at the Origin Gate not long ago, and have yet to adapt fully to the situation in the Origin Gate. I suggest that the Chaos Ruler adapt for a while longer before attempting to hunt Origin beasts to obtain spacetime crystals. Ruler Starfield appeared a little surprised. Clearly, he did not expect Lin Feng to be so eager to hunt Origin beasts and obtain spacetime crystals. No need. I think I've more or less adapted. I urgently need to obtain spacetime crystals now. Ruler Starfield, please give me some pointers. Lin Feng shook his head. His attitude was very firm. In terms of adaptation, he had indeed already adapted to the Origin Gate. It was just that he could not use the spacetime power. As for the spacetime prison, Lin Feng's spacetime prison was actually far more suppressed than the Origin Supreme treasures of other Voidwalkers. However, Lin Feng's own strength was comparable to an ultimate Voidwalker. Hence, he was not afraid. Seeing that Lin Feng had already made up his mind, Ruler Starfield did not persuade him against it anymore. Instead, he explained to Lin Feng, Chaos Ruler, you're new here and don't know much about the situation of the Origin Beasts. In reality, Origin Beasts are also divided into tiers. In other words, there are differences in strength between Origin Beasts. The strength of the Origin Beasts from weak to strong are divided into ordinary Origin Beasts, powerful Origin Beasts, peak Origin Beasts, and Origin Beast Kings. Among them, ordinary Origin Beasts correspond to ordinary Ultimate Voidwalkers, while powerful Origin Beasts correspond to powerful Ultimate Voidwalkers. Peak Origin Beasts correspond to peak Ultimate Voidwalkers. As for the Origin Beast Kings, they correspond to Void Overlords. I'm talking about the strength that can be unleashed in the Origin Gate. As we Voidwalkers all rely on our Origin Supreme treasures, while the Origin Supreme treasure is suppressed by the spacetime rule here, generally speaking, our strength has decreased greatly. Being able to unleash the strength of an ordinary peak Voidwalker in the Origin Gate is already quite good. As for powerful Origin Beasts and peak Origin Beasts, they're very dangerous. Escape immediately if you encounter them. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. Of course he understood what Ruler Starfield meant. In the Origin Gate, even for Void Overlords, once their Origin Supreme treasure was suppressed, they'd be lucky if they could end up unleashing the strength of an ordinary peak Voidwalker. What about the Origin Beast Kings? Is there no one who can hunt them? Lin Feng asked curiously. Origin Beast Kings? Ruler Starfield smiled weakly and shook his head. There are many Voidwalkers who had the same thought as you. In fact, powerful Voidwalkers who comprehended the principle of spacetime in the Origin Gate back then could all unleash the strength of peak Ultimate Voidwalkers. In the past, these peak Ultimate Voidwalkers besieged an Origin Beast King together. In the end, almost all of them were annihilated and suffered heavy losses. Some people suspect that the spacetime crystal of the Origin Beast King must be extraordinary. Perhaps it can exempt people from the suppression of the Origin Gate spacetime rule. But in the end, speculation is just speculation. No one in the Origin Gate has ever killed the Origin Beast King. Lin Feng understood now. In a special environment like the Origin Gate, the Origin Beast King was undoubtedly the true hegemon. Chaos Ruler, the stronger the Origin Beast, the higher the quality of the spacetime crystals. The higher the quality, the more beneficial it is for comprehending the principle of spacetime. Hence, high-quality spacetime crystals can only be encountered by chance. Moreover, once you reach a certain realm, those low-quality spacetime crystals would no longer be of much use. Lin Feng nodded, indicating that he understood. Of course, he was still waiting for the last answer. He was going to kill origin beasts and obtain the spacetime crystal. It was impossible for him to leave casually and search everywhere. That would undoubtedly be very dangerous. If he encountered a powerful origin beast, he would probably die. This required information from Ruler Starfield. Ruler Starfield had been in the Origin Gate for so many years, and must have collected a large amount of information. Naturally, it could help Lin Feng avoid certain risks. There's a mountain range to the east called the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. There, the periphery is usually filled with ordinary origin beasts. As long as you don't venture deep into the core area, you won't encounter powerful origin beasts. Having received advice from Ruler Starfield, Lin Feng nodded and expressed his gratitude to Ruler Starfield. Thank you for your advice, Ruler Starfield. I'll go to the Celestial Pole Mountain Range to try my luck first. Chaos Ruler, remember, don't push things. Staying alive is the most important thing in the Origin Gate. Ruler Starfield's expression turned serious as he said solemnly. Clearly, Ruler Starfield did not want Lin Feng to die just like that. He still had some plans and needed Lin Feng's help. If Lin Feng died, it would not be so easy for him to find someone to help. After all, the Origin Gate was too big, and there were too few Voidwalkers. All of them had their own plans. Being able to meet a newcomer like Lin Feng could be considered extremely lucky. Hence, Lin Feng bade farewell and left the mountain of Ruler Starfield, flying straight towards the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. On the way, Lin Feng also paid attention to his surroundings at all times. After all, this was an unfamiliar environment. There could be danger at any moment. He had to be careful. In the Origin Gate, the true hegemons were not Voidwalkers or cultivators, but those origin beasts. They were the true hegemons of the Origin Gate. Even Voidwalkers were actually only tiny in the eyes of these origin beasts. They might be completely insignificant. Lin Feng was careful and did not encounter any danger along the way. Soon he saw a huge mountain range. I've arrived at the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. Lin Feng looked at the mountain range in front of him. He could already vaguely sense the aura of some origin beasts inside. There were strong and weak ones. He could only sense them roughly and could not investigate them in detail. He approached the Celestial Pole Mountain Range for a distance again and searched carefully with his mental power. Finally, he discovered an origin beast. Its aura was not too strong, but it was definitely not weak. Moreover, it seemed to have discovered Lin Feng and was roaring at him. You'll do. Lin Feng smiled. Then, without hesitation, his aura locked onto this origin beast as he flew down. Gore! As soon as Lin Feng flew down, the origin beast in the forest let out a loud roar that shook the forest. Even Lin Feng could not help but tremble. Even the medium kiliocosm power that covered his surroundings was dissipated at once. Lin Feng immediately came back to his senses. This was not the void. He was not invincible. This was the Origin Gate. He might die in the maws of an origin beast at any moment. Hence, he must be careful in every battle. This was especially the case this time. It was practically Lin Feng's first battle in the Origin Gate. However, this was also an excellent opportunity to understand the origin beasts. There were no other origin beasts nearby, so Lin Feng did not have to worry about attracting other origin beasts and causing him trouble. There was just one origin beast. Once he killed it, he could obtain the spacetime crystal. Lin Feng had a vague feeling that the spacetime crystal was actually the core of the Origin Gate. All the secrets were inextricably related to the spacetime crystal. Medium kiliocosm. At this moment, Lin Feng immediately transformed into an enormous world. The mighty medium kiliocosm power suddenly descended. Once Lin Feng started the battle, he immediately unleashed all his abilities, almost going all out. Boom! The medium kiliocosm power swept towards the origin beast majestically like a surging torrent. Even though the roar of this origin beast just now had already dispersed some of Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power, that was only equivalent to a tiny part of Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power. When all of Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm power swept over, and even his entire medium kiliocosm descended, his strength would instantly be comparable to an ultimate Voidwalker. Of course, the origin beast would not sit back and do nothing. It roared furiously and opened its mouth. It seemed to spit out a vortex that collided fiercely towards Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm. This collision attempted to pierce through Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm. Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm shook violently. Lin Feng was shocked. Although the medium kiliocosm was shaking violently, he knew the advantage of the medium kiliocosm. Or rather, the advantage of the kiliocosm sovereign cultivation system. That was defense and confinement. Relying on these special methods, the kiliocosm sovereigns were one of the trickiest types of cultivators to deal with in the vast void. No Voidwalker at the same level was willing to go against the kiliocosm sovereigns. Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm was struck hard by the power of this origin beast. He felt a violent tremor, but it did not break through the medium kiliocosm. This also meant that the strength of this origin beast was actually only comparable to an ordinary ultimate Voidwalker. It was just an ordinary origin beast. Relying on the uniqueness of the medium kiliocosm, Lin Feng could firmly suppress this origin beast. But as Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm continued to descend, finally, the medium kiliocosm pressed down hard, enveloping this origin beast. Once it entered the medium kiliocosm, it would be a life-or-death dilemma. In particular, there was the river of spacetime in Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm, where a spacetime prison was nurtured. As long as Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm was not broken, the suppression of the spacetime rule in the origin gate could not affect the river of spacetime in the medium kiliocosm at all. In other words, in the medium kiliocosm, Lin Feng's spacetime prison could unleash its greatest power. Suppress. With a thought from Lin Feng, the spacetime prison suddenly flew out of the river of spacetime. It shone brightly and descended directly. Almost without meeting any resistance, this origin beast was suppressed in the spacetime prison. It's been suppressed? Lin Feng looked at the empty medium kiliocosm. That seemed very easy. In reality, it was indeed very easy. From the moment Lin Feng began to attack, to the moment he used the spacetime prison to suppress the origin beast, it only took a few breaths. The process seemed very complicated, but it was actually very easy. Could it be that this origin beast was too weak? Lin Feng did not think so. In reality, the aura on this origin beast was actually not much different from the origin beast he had encountered when he encountered Ruler Starfield. However, from the looks of it, killing that origin beast was not easy for Ruler Starfield at all. This meant that it was not that this origin beast was too weak, but that Lin Feng was too strong. Or rather, Lin Feng's ability countered these origin beasts. In the end, Lin Feng's kiliocosm sovereign system was a little special. As long as it was in his medium kiliocosm, his origin supreme treasure would not be affected at all. In other words, as long as the power of the origin beast could not break through his medium kiliocosm, he could instantly suppress the origin beast. This was almost impossible to counter for ordinary origin beasts. How difficult was it to break through Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm at once with power at the same level? It had to possess overwhelming power to break through Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm at once. At the very least, it had to be a powerful origin beast. However, could Lin Feng not run when encountering powerful origin beasts? Hence, for the time being, Lin Feng would not be in much danger. Of course, the prerequisite was that he was lucky and did not provoke those powerful origin beasts. Good. With the medium kiliocosm and the spacetime prison, ordinary origin beasts almost have no way to counter me. A smile also appeared on Lin Feng's lips. At the very least, he had already figured out the strength of ordinary origin beasts. He could deal with them, and he could deal with them very well. Next, it would depend on the spacetime crystal. Lin Feng took the risk to come to the Celestial Pole Mountain range this time to deal with an origin beast, not just to figure out the strength of the origin beasts, but more importantly because he needed the spacetime crystals. He wanted to try out the wonders of the spacetime crystals. Hence, Lin Feng immersed his consciousness in the spacetime prison. At this moment, in the spacetime prison, the origin beast was already firmly suppressed. Moreover, there were similar spacetime beasts around. However, those spacetime beasts were all undying and indestructible, and were equivalent to eternal entities in the spacetime prison. Even if they died countless times, they could be revived. With a thought from Lin Feng, countless spacetime monsters immediately pounced towards the suppressed origin beast. In an instant, the origin beast was torn into pieces, leaving only a crystalline pearl behind. It was a spacetime crystal. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the spacetime crystal landed in Lin Feng's hand. This is the spacetime crystal? Lin Feng held the spacetime crystal in his hand. Felt a little cold. There was a familiar fluctuation of power inside, the fluctuation of spacetime power. It even made his principle of spacetime a little restless. The method of using the spacetime crystal was very simple. Lin Feng had already consulted Ruler Starfield. It was to extend his mental power directly into the spacetime crystal, and he would naturally be able to obtain comprehension of the principle of spacetime. As for how much he could comprehend, it would depend on the cultivator himself. Hence, Lin Feng did not hesitate and immediately extended his mental power into the spacetime crystal. Ha! When Lin Feng's mental power extended into the spacetime crystal, the entire spacetime crystal immediately shone brightly. Ripples attacked Lin Feng's consciousness. These ripples were actually a kind of information flow. The massive information flow attacked Lin Feng's consciousness in a frenzy, causing his consciousness to involuntarily integrate into this ripple. Although he could still maintain his own consciousness, he was inevitably affected by this information flow. Of course, Lin Feng could leave at any time. However, this information flow was immensely beneficial to cultivators. Lin Feng felt as if he was traversing in an ocean of spacetime. At this moment, he felt incomparably close to the principle of spacetime and incomparably familiar with it. Even though Lin Feng had already comprehended the principle of spacetime, he felt vaguely inspired in this state. He had a new and direct understanding of the principle of spacetime. But soon, the spacetime crystal was reduced to dust and completely dissipated. That special state also disappeared with the disappearance of the spacetime crystal. Deep down, Lin Feng felt a sense of loss, as if he had lost something most precious. So this is a spacetime crystal? It's indeed extraordinary, Lin Feng muttered softly, a sharp glint flickering across his eyes. Originally, he still had some doubts about comprehending the principle of spacetime in the origin gate. After all, Lin Feng had comprehended the principle of spacetime himself. He knew very well how difficult it was to comprehend the principle of spacetime. Even demonstrating it once in front of him would be useless. Those who could comprehend it could eventually comprehend it. Those who could not would not comprehend it, no matter how long it took. However, relying on the spacetime crystals in this origin gate, he actually felt immersed in it. Lin Feng even felt that as long as they had enough spacetime crystals, even if not everyone could comprehend the principle of spacetime, at least the probability of comprehending it would increase greatly. It could even be increased by more than 20% to 30%. A chance of 20 to 30% was not to be underestimated. In the void, forget about 20 to 30%, it was a chance of less than 1 in 10,000. Or rather, in billions of years and countless epochs in the void, no one had been able to comprehend the principle of spacetime. This was enough to show how abstruse the principle of spacetime was. There was no knowing how exciting having a 10% chance of comprehending the principle of spacetime would make someone, let alone a 20 to 30% chance. However, Lin Feng also knew very well that one spacetime crystal in the body of an ordinary origin beast was actually not very useful to him. There was just a little epiphany. In reality, it might not be enough to enhance Lin Feng's principle of spacetime by much. Although currently, it seemed like this spacetime crystal did not have much of an effect on Lin Feng, this was a spacetime crystal from the body of an ordinary origin beast. What if it was a powerful origin beast? Or what if a spacetime crystal was retrieved from the body of a peak origin beast? Lin Feng did not dare to imagine how miraculous a spacetime crystal at that level was. According to Lin Feng's prediction, it was probably very useful even for a cultivator like Lin Feng, who had already comprehended the principle of spacetime. After the origin beast died, the spacetime prison seemed to be enhanced a little. Even the space-time beasts became a little stronger. Lin Feng checked carefully and realized that the space-time prison had indeed been enhanced a little. The enhancement was not obvious, but it had indeed been enhanced a little. The ones that had truly changed greatly were those space-time monsters. Those space-time monsters had improved by a lot. Some might even be on the verge of metamorphosis. It had to be known that, in the past, for the space-time beasts to undergo metamorphosis of the space-time prison was required. Only then could the space-time beasts undergo metamorphosis. But now, the space-time beasts had actually become stronger. Could it be because the origin beasts and the space-time beasts come from the same source, and are the same type of beings? Lin Feng thought of this possibility. The two were almost identical. The only difference might be the problem of being undying and indestructible. The space-time monsters could be undying and indestructible in the space-time prison. Killing them countless times was meaningless. On the other hand, the origin beasts could not be undying and indestructible. In the origin gate, once they were killed, they would be completely dead. However, perhaps this was because the rules of both parties were different. There were rules of the space-time prison in the space-time prison. There were rules of the origin gate in the origin gate. The difference in rules between the two was the cause of the differences between them. However, since the space-time monsters could become stronger and even undergo metamorphosis, this was a good thing for Lin Feng. Even the space-time prison could be enhanced. This was also a good thing. In the origin gate, there were very few cultivators, but there were many origin beasts. In the future, even if the space-time prison did not disintegrate more origin supreme treasures, it could still complete its metamorphosis through killing origin beasts. I'll try killing other origin beasts and see what's different about their space-time crystals. Lin Feng had only obtained one space-time crystal. His perception was not complete yet. He still needed to obtain more space-time crystals. Hence, Lin Feng kept searching for the origin beasts at the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range. There were indeed many origin beasts in the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range. To the Void Overlords, it was very difficult to even kill ordinary origin beasts in the origin gate. They had to be careful and plan thoroughly for obtaining each spacetime crystal. However, to Lin Feng, his internal medium kiliocosm had already expanded to the limit. Combined with the spacetime prison that could unleash its full power in the medium kiliocosm, he was simply invincible when dealing with ordinary origin beasts. There was no way for them to counter him at all. Hence, Lin Feng practically swept through and crushed everything at the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range. He used the medium kiliocosm against all the ordinary origin beasts he encountered, throwing them into the spacetime prison before killing them to obtain one spacetime crystal after another. 1, 2, 3. Lin Feng swept through for a month and killed 33 origin beasts, obtaining 33 spacetime crystals. He was basically killing an origin beast on average every day. This efficiency could be considered terrifying. Ordinary void overlords had to be cautious. They probably needed more than 10,000 years to accumulate dozens of spacetime crystals. But Lin Feng had done it in a month. In a sense, Lin Feng's methods completely countered these origin beasts. It was even easier for him to kill them than for those powerful void overlords. However, eventually, Lin Feng's actions of sweeping through those ordinary origin beasts without restraint at the periphery of the Celestial Pole mountain range still attracted the attention of the origin beasts in the core area of the Celestial Pole mountain range. Powerful origin beasts existed in the core region. Lin Feng had always been careful not to step into the core region at all. However, it was impossible for him to sweep through the mountains so brazenly without attracting the attention of the origin beasts in the core region of the Celestial Pole mountain range. Boom! Suddenly, the ground of the Celestial Pole mountain range shook. A daunting aura soared into the sky, as if a terrifying force had awakened. A powerful origin beast. Lin Feng's expression changed abruptly. Recently, his heart had been palpitating slightly. However, he was so immersed in the excitement of harvesting the spacetime crystals that he did not realize that he had been targeted by a powerful origin beast. The next moment, a huge claw that seemed to tear through space instantly appeared in front of Lin Feng. An extremely dangerous feeling rose in the depths of Lin Feng's heart. Danger! Extreme danger. Lin Feng had the feeling of facing death. In other words, if this claw landed on Lin Feng, it was very likely that Lin Feng would fall. His medium chiliocosm could not resist this claw at all. Powerful origin beast. This was definitely a powerful origin beast. Such strength simply far exceeded Lin Feng's expectations. His impression of these origin beasts or voidwalkers was actually still stuck at his understanding in the void, and he had not truly understood how terrifying these origin beasts were. In the void, Lin Feng had many ways to evade them. But at the origin gate, it was impossible for him to evade them. This was a fundamental cognitive mistake. However, this was a deep-rooted cognitive problem that was very difficult to correct in a short period of time. It required subtle influence over time to gradually correct it. Lin Feng knew clearly that powerful origin beasts existed in the core area of the Celestial Pole Mountain Range, but he had never thought of it as anything too important. It was as if in his subconscious, he still believed that powerful origin beasts were not that strong. Even if he encountered them, he could leave with composure. But now, when he really faced a powerful origin beast, Lin Feng realized that he was mistaken. He was gravely mistaken. At this moment, Lin Feng was facing an intense life-or-death crisis. Resist it. Lin Feng mobilized his internal medium chiliocosm frantically. His medium chiliocosm had always seemed to be at an advantage against those ordinary origin beasts. However, this time, when facing a powerful origin beast, it appeared so fragile. As the claw suddenly struck down, Lin Feng's medium chiliocosm was instantly torn apart. The huge claw almost reached the core of Lin Feng's medium chiliocosm, the huge river of spacetime. In fact, as the medium chiliocosm was torn apart, the spacetime rule in the origin gate also began to suppress Lin Feng's river of spacetime. At this moment, even the river of spacetime became unstable. It began to shake violently, as if it would collapse at any moment. Once the river of spacetime collapsed, it would be over for Lin Feng. Although the process was very long, it actually only lasted for a brief period of time. Swoosh! Finally, Lin Feng activated the void vessel. The void vessel suddenly shook, then disappeared without a trace with Lin Feng, leaving only a huge claw. An enormous head poked out of the depths of the mountain range. There actually seemed to be a trace of confusion on its face. However, in the end, the huge claw also retracted. The Celestial Pole Mountain Range returned to calm, as if nothing had happened, and fell silent again. Buzz. At this moment, ripples quickly spread in the void somewhere in the origin gate. A spaceship appeared in the air. It was the void vessel. Lin Feng was still a little shaken in the void vessel. He hurriedly used his mental power to check his surroundings. There did not seem to be any danger. He had already left the Celestial Pole Mountain Range. Lin Feng took a closer look. He was not far from Ruler Starfield's mountain anymore. He simply flew straight back towards the mountain. After returning to the mountain, he did not visit Ruler Starfield, but directly announced his seclusion. L almost fell for real. After Lin Feng finished checking the situation of his internal medium chiliocosm, his expression was grim. His medium chiliocosm was not in a good state. It had been broken by a claw from the mysterious powerful origin beast. Actually, breaking it was not a big deal. The medium chiliocosm would recover very quickly. However, the key was that it had exposed the core power of the medium chiliocosm, the river of spacetime, to the origin gate, causing it to be suppressed by the spacetime rule of the origin gate. This affected the river of spacetime to a certain extent. In fact, even the spacetime prison inside was affected. Could be said to be a heavy loss. He had to spend some time cultivating in seclusion to slowly recover. Fortunately, Lin Feng had some top-notch natural treasures that could restore the medium chiliocosm, so he did not have to worry too much. Still, this served as a reminder to Lin Feng that the origin gate was very dangerous. With his current strength, he could always be at an advantage against ordinary origin beasts. But if he faced a powerful origin beast, he must still run as far as he could. However, he could not use the origin supreme treasure in the origin gate. Lin Feng had also reached his limit. How could he increase his strength? If he could not increase his strength, he would never be able to deal with powerful origin beasts in the origin gate. Or rather, most void overlords could not deal with powerful origin beasts. They could only rely on hunting ordinary origin beasts to obtain spacetime crystals, and slowly accumulate comprehension in the principle of spacetime. However, Lin Feng did not want to do this. Moreover, the effect of the spacetime crystals of ordinary origin beasts was ultimately limited. Without the effect, wouldn't he be trapped in the origin gate forever, unable to improve at all? This was not the outcome Lin Feng wanted. I have to increase my strength. Lin Feng made up his mind. However, in Lin Feng's current situation, there was only one way for him to increase his strength in the origin gate. He had to strengthen his comprehension of the principle of spacetime and gradually resist the suppression of the spacetime rule. Only by resisting the suppression of the spacetime rule could he use the spacetime prison, and hence improving his strength. Perhaps it should not be called improving strength, but releasing strength. This was also what many void overlords did. They slowly strengthened their comprehension of the principle of spacetime. When their comprehension reached a certain level, they could resist the suppression of the spacetime rule and mobilize more power in the origin supreme treasure. For example, in the past, they might only be able to use 30 to 40% of its power. But as their comprehension of the principle of spacetime deepened, and they could slightly resist the spacetime rule, they would be able to mobilize 50%, or even 60% to 70% of the power of the origin supreme treasure. This way, wouldn't their strength increase indirectly? Lin Feng also wanted to use this method. Moreover, in the origin gate, increasing one's comprehension of the principle of spacetime was not illusory. Rather, one could rely on spacetime crystals to deepen their comprehension of the principle of spacetime. There are a total of 33 spacetime crystals. I hope they can give me a surprise, Lin Feng muttered softly. This time, although he had encountered danger in the Celestial Pole Mountain range and almost died, he had also gained a lot. At least, he had obtained 33 spacetime crystals. Even Ruler Starfield probably had not collected 33 spacetime crystals after collecting them in the origin gate for so many years. Hence, Lin Feng still had an advantage. At least when facing ordinary origin beasts, he could sweep through them. This was stronger than the performance of most void overlords in the origin gate. Lin Feng also had high hopes for the 33 spacetime crystals, hoping that they would be of some help to his comprehension of the principle of spacetime. However, Lin Feng himself did not know how effective it would be. He would only know after giving it a try. After all, although Lin Feng also had an advantage, he was unique. He was the only Voidwalker who had already comprehended the principle of spacetime while in the void. Let's begin. Lin Feng took a deep breath and began to extend his mental power into the first spacetime crystal. Buzz. Lin Feng's mental power extended into the first spacetime crystal. In reality, this was Lin Feng's second time using the spacetime crystal. Although it was somewhat useful, Lin Feng felt that it was not as miraculous as Ruler Starfield had described. After all, the effect of using the spacetime crystal varied from person to person. For those Voidwalkers who had not comprehended the principle of spacetime, using the spacetime crystal might be very effective. However, for a cultivator like Lin Feng, who had already comprehended the principle of spacetime and had a deep understanding of it, while this spacetime crystal could not be considered completely ineffective, its effect was greatly reduced. Basically, the principle of spacetime was divided into several stages. The first was the process of trying to comprehend the true meaning of the principle of spacetime, for those who had not come into contact with it. The number of cultivators at this stage was the greatest, and this process was rather long. There might even be more detailed divisions. However, this was not important to Lin Feng. The second stage was having comprehension of the principle of spacetime. Lin Feng fell under the second stage, but after comprehending the principle of spacetime, he could only stop spacetime. This was the most preliminary stage of comprehending spacetime. The third stage was being able to accelerate spacetime and rewind spacetime. At the fourth stage, one should be able to comprehend the true meaning of the past and the future, and even touch the future. This stage was probably infinitely close to the mysteries of spacetime. The fifth stage was probably the complete comprehension of the principle of spacetime, reaching Dawn's realm of transcending spacetime to obtain true eternity. However, there were simply too few such entities. Up until now, Lin Feng only knew of one mysterious entity like Dawn who had transcended spacetime. Of course, these 5 stages were only divided by Lin Feng according to his own understanding of the principle of spacetime. As for whether there were any mistakes, Lin Feng did not know either. This was just a rough division and a personal opinion. According to this division, Lin Feng should be in the 3rd stage. In reality, Lin Feng was beginning to touch the mysteries of the future slightly now. As for comprehending it, there was no knowing how far away he still was. As Lin Feng extended his mental power into the spacetime crystal, he entered that special state again. It was as if he was wandering in spacetime, comprehending the mysteries of spacetime at will. It was just that Lin Feng had actually already comprehended these mysteries of spacetime. However, he had never experienced the mysteries of spacetime so directly. If this state continued, Lin Feng would be able to completely comprehend the mysteries of spacetime bit by bit. This way, his foundation would be incomparably stable. It would also be easier for him to improve further in the future than other Voidwalkers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lin Feng used one spacetime crystal after another. Years had passed, but no one came to disturb Lin Feng. Everything felt so peaceful. At this moment, Ruler Starfield was looking at Lin Feng's residence from afar, as if he was thinking about something. He hasn't exited seclusion yet? How many spacetime crystals did he obtain in the Celestial Pole Mountain range? Ruler Starfield was actually also very shocked. Back when Lin Feng headed to the Celestial Pole Mountain range, Ruler Starfield actually did not pay much attention to it. Even if he was a true Void Overlord, the strength he could unleash right after entering the Origin Gate was actually very ordinary. Often, only after adapting to the rules of the Origin Gate could the Void Overlords gradually unleash their strength. However, even so, they were actually only equivalent to ordinary Origin beasts. At most, their adaptability would be higher. With various methods, they might be able to restrain and even kill the Origin beasts, reaching the level of Ruler Starfield. However, later on, Ruler Starfield sensed that a terrifying battle had erupted in the Celestial Pole Mountain range. Powerful Origin beasts had even appeared at the periphery of the Celestial Pole Mountain range. Such a thing was rare. Any powerful Origin beast was almost always a disaster. Even Ruler Starfield absolutely would not dare to provoke a powerful Origin beast. Such an upheaval in the Celestial Pole Mountain range could not help but give Ruler Starfield some guesses. He even took the risk to investigate and vaguely developed a bold guess. He had not comprehended the principle of spacetime, and could not rewind time. However, according to Ruler Starfield's speculations about the situation in the Celestial Pole Mountain range, the one who caused the powerful Origin beast in the Celestial Pole Mountain range to attack was a Voidwalker. The only Voidwalker who had been to the Celestial Pole Mountain range recently was the Chaos Ruler, Lin Feng, who had just entered the Origin Gate not long ago. This was just too insane. Could Lin Feng, the Chaos Ruler, attract a powerful Origin beast to attack? Moreover, almost no Voidwalker was left alive by that powerful Origin beast. How was this possible? Or could Lin Feng be comparable to a powerful Origin beast? This was even more impossible. If he really had such strength, Lin Feng could even wipe out the Celestial Pole Mountain range. Hence, for a moment, Ruler Starfield, who originally thought that he had control over everything about Lin Feng, felt that there seemed to be a mysterious veil on Lin Feng that could never be lifted. Every Void Overlord was not simple. Ruler Starfield no longer underestimated Lin Feng. He really wanted to know how many spacetime crystals Lin Feng had obtained in the Celestial Pole Mountain range now. From how Lin Feng had been focused on cultivating for so long, there must be a lot of spacetime crystals. This could not help but make Ruler Starfield's heart burn with envy. It was not that he coveted Lin Feng's spacetime crystals. He knew very well that since Lin Feng was so powerful, it was best not to become enemies with Lin Feng. Otherwise, even Ruler Starfield might not be Lin Feng's match. At the very least, Ruler Starfield could not escape from a powerful Origin beast. If he's really that strong, it may not be impossible to go to that place. Ruler Starfield muttered softly. There was a trace of anticipation in his eyes. Hence, Ruler Starfield continued to wait. Once Lin Feng ended his seclusion, Ruler Starfield would get straight to the point and tell him his plan. Swoosh. Lin Feng's internal medium kiliocosm and the river of spacetime almost doubled. This was unusual. In the past, Lin Feng's river of spacetime basically expanded with the medium kiliocosm. After all, the river of spacetime was the core power of the medium kiliocosm. They were bound together for good or ill. As for the independent expansion of the river of spacetime, Lin Feng had never actually seen it. But now, the river of spacetime in Lin Feng's body had really expanded by at least one-fold independently. Meanwhile, his medium kiliocosm had reached its limit, and it had not increased at all. Lin Feng knew very well that this was the effect of the spacetime crystal. Moreover, the effect of the spacetime crystal was not as simple as it appeared. The 33 spacetime crystals actually did not improve Lin Feng's comprehension of the principle of spacetime by much. However, they completely perfected Lin Feng's accumulation of the principle of spacetime bit by bit. Now, it was true and complete comprehension. In other words, if he returned to the past, even if all his strength disappeared, he could comprehend the principle of spacetime again. It would not be like before, when comprehending the principle of spacetime was just a fluke and an accident. Lin Feng had truly transformed his comprehension of the principle of spacetime into a part of himself. At some point, a group of uninvited guests had arrived at the Celestial Pole mountain range. There were about 5 of them, all of whom had extremely powerful auras and were carrying Origin Supreme treasures. If they were in the void, they would probably be void overlords. However, as soon as these 5 people arrived at the Celestial Pole mountain range, they all tacitly prepared to capture and surround some Origin beasts. But after searching around the Celestial Pole mountain range, they did not find any ordinary Origin beasts. What's going on? Why are the Origin beasts of the Celestial Pole mountain range gone? Strange Origin beasts are usually everywhere in the Celestial Pole mountain range. It's very easy to encounter them at the periphery. Could they have been hunted down? Who can hunt down so many Origin beasts so easily? If he can unleash the strength of a powerful Origin beast in the Origin Gate, killing ordinary Origin beasts is meaningless to him. Has something happened? Should we go to the core area to take a look? The 5 Voidwalkers were all very disappointed. They had formulated a plan and originally planned to make a big move today. Who would have thought that they would find nothing? Something's wrong. The traces here indicate that someone had indeed cleared them out in advance. It's just that the actual situation is unclear. Elle found that there's only traces of one person here. Can one person sweep through so many Origin beasts alone? There also seems to be traces of a powerful Origin beast. The expressions of the 5 Voidwalkers became more and more solemn. Powerful Origin beasts were definitely a taboo topic in the Origin Gate. Voidwalkers who could deal with powerful Origin beasts were very rare. In the Origin Gate, they were definitely among the top experts. However, the 5 Voidwalkers continued to analyze. It seemed like the moment the powerful Origin beast appeared, the other party had already escaped. This meant that the other party might not have the strength to resist the powerful Origin beast. Yet, although he did not have the strength to contend with powerful Origin beasts, he could slaughter ordinary Origin beasts. This in itself was very strange and even somewhat contradictory. The situation here is getting stranger and stranger. Should we use the Rewind Stone? The Rewind Stone? Isn't that a little too wasteful? We spent a lot to purchase. No, I have a vague feeling that we'll probably have an unexpected gain this time. Didn't we buy the Rewind Stone for use at critical moments? I think now is the time to use it. After the 5 Voidwalkers discussed among themselves, they finally decided to use the Rewind Stone. As the name suggested, this Rewind Stone could rewind time. Under normal circumstances, as long as a cultivator comprehended the principle of spacetime, they could rewind time. However, this was the Origin Gate suppressed by the spacetime rule. Even cultivators who had comprehended the principle of spacetime to the 3rd stage could forget about rewinding time. Only cultivators who practiced the principle of spacetime to the 4th stage could barely mobilize the spacetime power and resist a portion of the spacetime rule suppression to rewind time. This was the case for this Rewind Stone. It was a treasure created by a peak voidwalker in the fourth stage using his own principle of spacetime. Its function was very simple. It could rewind time within a certain range. Although that peak voidwalker could manufacture it in large quantities, the price was extremely expensive. Although it did not require a powerful spacetime crystal, it still required many ordinary spacetime crystals. The 5 voidwalkers had bought this rewind stone together. After seeking opinions from the 5 people, one of the rulers, Xianxia, began to use the rewind stone. Buzz. The rewind stone began to emit a white light, enveloping the entire periphery of the celestial pole mountain range. At the same time, the scene inside began to rewind rapidly. The 5 of them saw a cultivator, and also saw that cultivator casually slaughtering the ordinary origin beasts. There was no knowing how many spacetime crystals he had obtained. In the end, he even alerted the powerful origin beast. At the critical moment, he barely managed to escape. After watching it, the rewind stone also collapsed completely and turned into dust. However, the 5 voidwalkers led by Xianxia all had different expressions, as if they were deep in thought. This person has secrets. After a long while, Xianxia spoke slowly in a somber voice. In reality, in the rewind, they did not find that mysterious voidwalker that powerful. He did not display any strength that could crush ordinary origin beasts at all. However, after trapping those origin beasts, he could deal with them completely. If this wasn't strange, what was? It's very likely that he has a special origin supreme treasure that can trap and unleash a portion of its power under the suppression of the spacetime rule. Hence, he can completely counter these origin beasts. However, his defense is not strong, and his offensive power is very ordinary. This is an opportunity, our opportunity. This person can sweep through ordinary origin beasts just by relying on an origin supreme treasure. If we obtain it, it's unimaginable. That's right. This person isn't too strong. The fact that he could defeat the origin beasts can only indicate that that origin supreme treasure is very special. However, the 5 of us are different. If the 5 of us join forces, we can kill him in an instant. At that time, that special origin supreme treasure will be ours. Wealth is found in perilous odds. We've always been cautious, but we've gained very little. Let's take a risk this time. It's such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Wouldn't it be a pity to miss it? The 5 voidwalkers were all tempted. They had even used the rewind stone. If they did not make a fortune this time, wouldn't it be a heavy loss? Moreover, the 5 of them had done many similar things over the years. Of course, they would not miss such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In particular, according to their detailed analysis, the strength of the mysterious voidwalker on the screen did appear to be very ordinary. If the strength of the mysterious voidwalker was comparable to a powerful origin beast, no, not comparable. If he could barely contend with a powerful origin beast, the 5 of them would probably be very wary. However, in the scene of the rewind, they saw that the mysterious voidwalker appeared very helpless when dealing with the powerful origin beast. In fact, if he was a little slow or a little less lucky, he would have died. That's right. This person seems to have another treasure that can warp space. This is a little troublesome. Being able to warp space in the origin gate is indeed extraordinary. However, we can buy the spacetime confinement stone. Although the price is a little higher, it's ultimately safer. That's right. Also, we have to investigate this person's identity thoroughly. If the 5 voidwalkers were in the void, they would all be famed void overlords. Naturally, they would be very prudent and careful when acting. They would definitely consider all aspects and make thorough preparations before acting. All right, since everyone has decided, let's investigate first, said Xianxia in a low voice. A strange glint flashed across his eyes. It appeared to contain a vague hint of anticipation. In the quiet room, Lin Feng suddenly seemed to have sensed something and jolted to alertness. What's going on? A sudden premonition? Lin Feng frowned. Just now, he was cultivating in seclusion and comprehending the principle of spacetime, but he had a vague premonition that a matter was related to him. However, when he checked carefully, he did not find anything. On the other hand, he vaguely felt that the principle of spacetime had loosened a little, as if there were some changes in the future. Future, Lin Feng frowned. At his level, he naturally had to advance towards the fourth stage. Currently, Lin Feng's principle of spacetime was only at the third stage. He had divided it into 5 stages himself. The fourth stage was to comprehend the principle of the future. However, the current Lin Feng only had some inspirations, and had no clue about the path of the future. Occasionally, he would feel sudden premonitions, and perhaps see fragments of the future. This was not luck, but because Lin Feng had already vaguely touched on this stage in his comprehension of the principle of spacetime. It was just that he had yet to completely comprehend it. Of course, although it seemed infinitely close, if he could not comprehend it, it would be useless no matter how many epochs he sat there for. This was the principle of spacetime. If one could comprehend it, they would comprehend it. If they could not, they would be at a loss. This time, Lin Feng did not obtain a future fragment, but he had a sudden premonition, like a faint warning from the future. Lin Feng could not help but be on guard. Perhaps something was about to happen? No matter how much he thought about it, he could not figure it out. Lin Feng also knew that it was undoubtedly a fantasy to figure out the principle of the future. At least, his current self was far from reaching that level. Even in the entire Origin Gate, there were probably only a handful of people who could reach this level. In fact, it was still unknown if there were any. I can exit seclusion and take a look first. Since Lin Feng was jolted to alertness by the sudden premonition, he stopped cultivating and exited seclusion to take a look at the situation. As soon as he exited seclusion, Ruler Starfield received the news. After all, this was his territory. If anything happened, Ruler Starfield would definitely be the first to know. Hence, Ruler Starfield made a personal visit. Chaos Ruler, you've finally exited seclusion. You must have gained a lot from this cultivation session in seclusion, right? A sharp glint flashed across Ruler Starfield's eyes as he sized Lin Feng up. Although Lin Feng did not reveal anything, Ruler Starfield could still sense that there was a slight change in Lin Feng. He must have gained a lot. After all, according to his speculation, Lin Feng had obtained a lot of spacetime crystals in the Celestial Pole Mountain range this time. What gains? I just cultivated in seclusion for a period of time to adapt to the rules in the Origin Gate. By the way, is there a reason for Ruler Starfield's visit? When Lin Feng saw Ruler Starfield take the initiative to visit, he knew that his visitor must have a request. There are indeed some things I need to discuss with the Chaos Ruler. Oh? What is it, Ruler Starfield? Please speak frankly. The two of them sat down. Ruler Starfield looked at Lin Feng, before he finally gritted his teeth and said, Chaos Ruler, I've underestimated you previously. You can deal with the Origin beasts alone, right? You can even deal with more than one. Ruler Starfield's eyes were bright as he stared intently at Lin Feng. However, this was a private secret. Lin Feng did not comment or answer. He only looked calmly at Ruler Starfield, wondering what Ruler Starfield was trying to do. Seeing that Lin Feng did not answer, Ruler Starfield naturally understood what was going on. He basically believed it now. His hypothesis was most likely correct. Hence, Ruler Starfield continued, I've been in the Origin Gate for more than 10 epochs, but up until now, I still haven't achieved anything in the principle of spacetime. I haven't even mastered it, let alone comprehended the principle of spacetime. At this rate, even if 20 epochs, 30 epochs, or even 100 epochs go by, I'm afraid I won't be able to comprehend the principle of spacetime. Therefore, I want to take a risk and venture into Ruler Yunku's abode. If I can gain something, I might be able to turn my current situation around in one fell swoop. However, Ruler Yunku's abode is filled with danger. I'm not too confident in doing it alone. Hence, I'd like to invite the Chaos Ruler to venture into Ruler Yunku's abode with me. What do you think, Chaos Ruler? With that, Ruler Starfield looked at Lin Feng expectantly. Ruler Yunku's abode? Lin Feng frowned. He was new here. How could he know about Ruler Yunku? However, with the explanation of Ruler Starfield, Lin Feng gradually understood the situation of Ruler Yunku. It turned out that Ruler Yunku was a powerful ultimate Voidwalker. Of course, it referred to the strength he could unleash in the Origin Gate. In fact, back then, Ruler Yunku had even killed some powerful origin beasts. He could be said to have an illustrious reputation. However, later on, when he was trying to comprehend the principle of spacetime, for some reason he suddenly fell. Why Ruler Yunku had fallen remained a mystery till this day. However, although Ruler Yunku had indeed fallen, his abode had been left behind. All these years, many people had searched for Ruler Yunku's abode, but found nothing. Ruler Starfield had clearly found the abode of Ruler Yunku. However, he was very cautious. After so many years, he must have made attempts as well. Unfortunately, he could not venture deep into the abode, nor could he obtain the treasures in it. However, Ruler Starfield was clearly unwilling to accept this. He was sitting on a treasure trove while empty-handed. In particular, he had been in the Origin Gate for more than 10 epochs, and his patience had already been exhausted. If he cultivated so slowly, when could he hope to comprehend the principle of spacetime? Even void overlords with infinite lifespans would feel impatient. Hence, after Ruler Starfield saw Lin Feng's strength, he made a decision in his heart and prepared to invite Lin Feng. Of course, even if he wanted to invite Lin Feng, Ruler Starfield only decided to invite him after observing him from multiple perspectives and feeling slightly assured about Lin Feng. Lin Feng was actually not that interested in a Voidwalker's abode comparable to a powerful origin beast. Why would he take the risk? Relying on his medium kiliocosm and his spacetime prison, he could almost crush ordinary origin beasts. He could also sweep through countless ordinary origin beasts and obtain spacetime crystals continuously. It was just that the effect would be slightly inferior. As if sensing Lin Feng's hesitation, Ruler Starfield continued, Chaos Ruler. It's very likely that there are powerful spacetime crystals in Ruler Yunku's abode. The effect of powerful spacetime crystals is far stronger than ordinary spacetime crystals. Moreover, after comprehending the principle of spacetime to a certain level, no matter how many ordinary spacetime crystals you use, they won't have any effect anymore. Higher quality spacetime crystals are necessary. Ruler Starfield's words made Lin Feng fall silent. Higher quality spacetime crystals. Lin Feng muttered softly. Lin Feng muttered softly. He was thinking quietly. Ruler Starfield did not disturb Lin Feng. He knew very well that Lin Feng had to consider it for himself now. In reality, Lin Feng had also sensed it himself. He had used 33 spacetime crystals, but they were all just ordinary spacetime crystals. They only made his foundation more stable. It was equivalent to him sorting out the principle of spacetime again, making the principle of spacetime completely his. No one could take it away. Even if he had to do it all over again, he was confident that he could comprehend the principle of spacetime. However, how could Lin Feng improve the principle of spacetime like this? At the very least, those ordinary spacetime crystals would probably not be very effective anymore. According to Ruler Starfield, after reaching a certain level, ordinary spacetime crystals would be useless. Of course, if he wanted to obtain powerful spacetime crystals, he did not necessarily have to take the risk to enter the Yunku abode. There was another way, and that was to take the risk to kill powerful origin beasts. However, Lin Feng had almost never thought of this possibility. In the past, Lin Feng might have held out hope of getting lucky. However, ever since Lin Feng encountered a powerful origin beast in the Celestial Pole mountain range, he had basically abandoned this possibility. A powerful origin beast could easily kill Lin Feng in an instant. Even his medium kiliocosm would be torn to pieces. Lin Feng would not even have the chance to use the spacetime prison to suppress it. If he rashly went up to such a terrifying entity, it was simply tantamount to having a death wish. There wouldn't even be a minuscule chance of getting lucky. This was even more dangerous than venturing into the Yunku abode. After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, Lin Feng raised his head, and a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. When are we leaving? Seeing that Lin Feng had agreed, Ruler Starfield was overjoyed. Ha ha ha, we can set off at any time. Lin Feng nodded and said, I can give up on anything else in the Yunku abode, but if I discover a powerful spacetime crystal, I want one no matter what. If there are more than two, we'll divide them equally, but if there is only one powerful spacetime crystal, you have to give it to me. Lin Feng said in a somber voice. He still felt that it was necessary to bring up all these matters first, in case things got troublesome in the future, and even caused discord between them which would lead to fighting. Ruler Starfield agreed readily. He nodded and said, "No problem." In reality, Ruler Starfield had not even reached the entry level of the principle of spacetime. What he needed more was ordinary spacetime crystals, not powerful ones. The higher the grade of the spacetime crystal, the better the effect. However, that also depended on the cultivator's own comprehension. If one's comprehension was insufficient, using high-quality spacetime crystals would be a pure waste, and would not have much effect at all. "All right, it's settled then. I can set off at any time." Ruler Starfield nodded. Hence, the two of them agreed to set off in 3 days. During these 3 days, the two of them would make proper preparations. Lin Feng had nothing much to prepare for. He only tried to use the spacetime power, but he still could not use it. The river of spacetime in his medium kiliocosm could not manifest either. The 33 spacetime crystals did not actually increase Lin Feng's strength. They just stabilized his foundation in the principle of spacetime. Hence, Lin Feng also urgently needed powerful spacetime crystals now to deepen his comprehension of the principle of spacetime. At the very least, it would allow him to unleash some of his strength. Actually, Lin Feng already had a plan. His spacetime prison was suppressed too hard by the rule of spacetime and could barely manifest. In actual combat, relying on Lin Feng's medium kiliocosm was still somewhat insufficient. At this moment, Lin Feng needed some other Origin Supreme treasures. However, ordinary Origin Supreme treasures were actually not of much use. They were firmly suppressed by the spacetime rule. At the very least, they had to be powerful Origin Supreme treasures, or better yet, peak Origin Supreme treasures. However, how difficult was it to get a peak Origin Supreme treasure? Any peak Origin Supreme treasure could create a void overlord in the void. Even though there seemed to be many more Origin Supreme treasures in the Origin Gate than in the void, though it was unknown where they came from, there were still very few peak Origin Supreme treasures. Moreover, even a peak Origin Supreme treasure might not be able to increase Lin Feng's combat power by much. For example, Ruler Starfield was also a void overlord, and was famed in the void. However, in the Origin Gate, he could only unleash the strength of an ordinary Origin beast. Although it was not at the bottom, it was not very powerful. Hence, it was really very difficult to increase his strength in the Origin Gate. Of course, Lin Feng was different. Lin Feng lacked a suitable Origin Supreme treasure now. The principle of spacetime he had comprehended had already reached the 3rd stage, and was even close to the 4th stage. If it were any other Origin Supreme treasure, he might be able to unleash even stronger power. Of course, this was also Lin Feng's guess. Moreover, Ruler Starfield had personally said it. Having comprehended the principle of spacetime, he was powerful even in the Origin Gate. It was just that Lin Feng's supreme treasure of origin was too special. It was a spacetime prison that contained too much spacetime power, and was firmly suppressed by the spacetime rule. Hence, even if Lin Feng had comprehended the principle of spacetime, he could not use the spacetime prison. Ruler Starfield did not discover that Lin Feng had comprehended the principle of spacetime either. He had never even thought that anyone could comprehend the principle of spacetime in the void. That was simply a fantasy and unprecedented in history. 3 days later, Ruler Starfield came before Lin Feng. "Chaos Ruler, everything is ready." Lin Feng nodded. "We can set off at any time." "All right, let's set off now." Ruler Starfield was already prepared. Hence, Lin Feng followed Ruler Starfield and flew into the sky, quickly leaving the mountain. Beforehand, Ruler Starfield did not tell Lin Feng the exact location of the Yunku abode. This was very normal. What if Lin Feng took it all for himself? Of course, once they entered the Yunku abode, Lin Feng could actually keep everything for himself too. However, Ruler Starfield was clearly prepared. Lin Feng could even vaguely sense that there seemed to be a terrifying power contained in Ruler Starfield's body. Once this power erupted, it would even pose some threat to Lin Feng. Lin Feng could not help but be shocked. It seemed like after staying in the Origin Gate for so many years, Ruler Starfield had not come up empty-handed either. At the very least, Ruler Starfield was well prepared and had some trump cards. Of course, unless absolutely necessary, Lin Feng would not choose to fall out with Ruler Starfield either. Only by working together could both parties win. However, if Ruler Starfield had any ulterior motives, Lin Feng would not be afraid, even if Ruler Starfield had prepared some trump cards. "We're here." After flying for a few hours, Ruler Starfield suddenly stopped and pointed at a towering mountain in front. "We're here." Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He saw the mountain in front of him, but he did not sense any abode. However, this was the origin gate. There were even people with a deeper understanding of the principle of spacetime than Lin Feng. It was normal that he could not sense it. Ruler Starfield took a deep breath and led Lin Feng to the mountain. Then, he seemed to be deploying some mysterious hand seals. He suddenly shouted at the sky, "Open!" Rumble, the entire mountain was shaking. Immediately on the heels of that, a golden abode appeared in the sky. Could be sensed even from afar. It's appeared. It's Ruler Yunku's abode. Ruler Starfield was very excited. After waiting for so many days, this day had finally arrived. "Let's go in. Otherwise, if someone discovers such a huge commotion, we'll have to be mindful not to let anyone get there first." Lin Feng nodded. Once Ruler Yunku's abode appeared, it would cause a huge commotion. If there happened to be people around, it would be easily discovered. They had to enter as soon as possible, and it would be best if they could gain something. Hence, the two of them immediately transformed into a stream of light and flew into the abode. Swoosh, 5 streams of light suddenly flew over from the mountain of Ruler Starfield and transformed into figures. The person in the lead was Ruler Xia. "This is it. The person we've paid a huge price to deduce about is here. According to the intelligence, this should be the cultivation place of a voidwalker called Ruler Starfield, right?" "That's right. This is the cultivation place of Ruler Starfield. According to our previous investigations, this Ruler Starfield is actually just a very ordinary void overlord. Perhaps he's famous in the void, but in the origin gate he's nothing much. He's barely comparable to an ordinary origin beast. With the 5 of us joining forces, we can easily suppress him. However, according to our deductions, that mysterious cultivator should not be Ruler Starfield, but another voidwalker in the residence of Ruler Starfield. We have to be careful." "Humph, we practically went all out this time and bought the spacetime confinement stone. This is a spacetime confinement treasure refined by a peak expert. Even a treasure that can warp through the void in the origin gate will be instantly imprisoned. No matter what abilities this person has, he can't escape. Still, we have to be careful. We absolutely can't let him escape. Let's set up an array around the entire mountain first. Better to get the wrong target than to let the right target off." Immediately, as Ruler Xia gave the order, the 5 voidwalkers immediately set up an array and surrounded the entire mountain. Boom! The mountain shook slightly, and a huge array was successfully set up. "What's going on? The mountain seems to be surrounded. Is this an array? What? How can there be an array surrounding the mountain? Quick! Report it to the ruler. The ruler and His Majesty the Chaos Ruler have left. Their whereabouts are unknown. Activate the defensive array." The entire mountain shook. There were also some ordinary cultivators on the mountain. They were all ordinary cultivators under Ruler Starfield, such as maidservants. They were panicking. Facing the attack of powerful enemies, they had already lost their composure. In the origin gate, it was almost impossible to do anything without a peak origin supreme treasure. Hence, they could only stay on the mountain. However, now that powerful enemies were attacking, they had no ability to resist at all. They could only send a message to Ruler Starfield at once, hoping that Ruler Starfield could rush back. Ruler Xia and the other voidwalkers took in the panicked scene on the mountain. Ruler Xia frowned and said, "Something's wrong. Why isn't there any reaction at all?" "That's right. We didn't sense any powerful voidwalkers either. Are the 2 voidwalkers not in the mountain? We'll know after we capture someone and ask them." Hence, one of the voidwalkers captured a maidservant on the mountain and asked her in detail. Faced with the 5 powerful voidwalkers, the maidservant had long lost her composure. In her panic, she answered almost every question, not daring to conceal anything. Ruler Starfield and the Chaos Ruler? He just entered the Origin Gate, and even Ruler Starfield is very courteous to him? That's right. Looks like that mysterious Chaos Ruler is the person we're looking for. They've already left. I wonder where they went. The 5 of them had already inquired about the situation. They captured some more guards for questioning, but they all gave the same explanation. From the looks of it, the person they were looking for should be the Chaos Ruler. However, what surprised Ruler Xia and the others was that the Chaos Ruler was actually a newcomer who had just entered the Origin Gate. This was really unbelievable. A sharp glint flashed across Ruler Xia's eyes. The Chaos Ruler has concealed himself very deeply. Perhaps even Ruler Starfield doesn't know the true ability of the Chaos Ruler. No one here knows where they went. Can we only wait here and do nothing? Even Ruler Xia was out of ideas now. The Origin Gate was simply too huge. Moreover, it was impossible for them to deduce any information just by relying on themselves. They were very well prepared this time and had also found someone to deduce it, but they had also paid a huge price for it. All their years of accumulation had been reduced to nothing overnight. Hence, they were not planning to return empty-handed this time. Let's go to the mountain and search for clues first. Ruler Xia waved his hand. After confirming that there was no longer any danger in the mountain, he plundered the entire mountain without restraint. As for the defensive array in the mountain, it was not of much use before them at all. However, after searching for a while, the 5 of them already wore dark expressions. Ruler Starfield was very impoverished, at least in the eyes of the 5 Voidwalkers. No wonder he could only build his abode in such a remote place. He had been in the Origin Gate for more than 10 epochs, yet he was still so impoverished. This also indirectly proved that Ruler Starfield was indeed not very strong. Otherwise, he would definitely not be so impoverished. Rumble. Just as the 5 of them were about to fly into a rage out of humiliation, the sky suddenly shook violently. One could even see waves of golden light emitted at the distant sky, illuminating the sky into a golden hue. The 5 of them were shocked. What is this? Has a peak Origin Supreme treasure appeared? No, it doesn't seem like it. It looks like a certain abode. Abode? Wait, let me think. Wasn't it rumored that Ruler Yunku's abode once existed in this area? Ruler Yunku's abode? That's right. I found some information about Ruler Yunku in Ruler Starfield's room. Could it be? At this moment, the 5 of them seemed to have guessed the truth. Even their breathing quickened, and their gazes were incomparably insane. Without any hesitation, Ruler Xia charged out of the mountain immediately and flew towards the phantom of the abode in the distance. Swoosh! Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield had already entered Ruler Yunku's abode. As soon as they entered the abode, Lin Feng sensed that something was amiss. The suppression of the space-time rule here seems to be clearly much weaker, Lin Feng muttered softly. In fact, in this special environment, his space-time power was stirring, feeling as if it could be mobilized. However, he did not attempt to mobilize space-time power. It was completely unnecessary. In this abode, Lin Feng did not sense any lethal threat. The treasure vault. Chaos Ruler were going to the treasure vault. Back then, Ruler Yunku was famous. He even killed many void overlords. He also comprehended the principle of space-time, and his comprehension was rather profound. There are probably many treasures in his treasure vault. Ruler Starfield said excitedly. Indeed, back then, Ruler Yunku had an illustrious reputation. He could kill even powerful origin beasts. How strong must he be? Lin Feng did not know what stage Ruler Yunku had reached in the principle of spacetime, but it should not be inferior to him. He was at least at the 3rd stage. Coupled with a powerful origin supreme treasure, he was indeed very powerful. Lin Feng's current comprehension of the principle of spacetime was actually already very extraordinary, and even exceeded more than 80% of the void overlords. All he lacked was a powerful origin supreme treasure. Although the spacetime prison was strong until it could metamorphose, it was completely suppressed by the spacetime rule in the Origin Gate. It could not be mobilized at all, let alone unleash its power. Ruler Yunku was so powerful. How did he fall? Lin Feng asked Ruler Starfield. Ruler Starfield shook his head and said, Ruler Yunku seemed to have fallen all of a sudden. There were no signs at all. It's very strange. This is also an ancient mystery. We only know that Ruler Yunku left behind an abode. However, even the abode has never appeared. It has even become a legend. Perhaps after we enter the abode this time, we can figure out why Ruler Yunku fell back then. Lin Feng nodded. The death of Ruler Yunku was indeed filled with mysteries. However, since they had already arrived at Ruler Yunku's abode today, there might be a chance of learning the reason for Ruler Yunku's death. Hence, the two of them continued to investigate. The function of the abode was very simple. Even without Ruler Starfield, Lin Feng could still understand the situation in the abode. Ruler Starfield was actually also wary of danger. He had vague premonitions of some danger, which was why he had not entered the abode for so long all these years. Danger. I sense danger. It's near the treasure vault. The closer he got to the treasure vault, the more cautious Ruler Starfield became. He had already vaguely sensed danger, but Lin Feng did not feel anything. This did not mean that Lin Feng was inferior to Ruler Starfield. On the contrary, perhaps it was because Lin Feng was stronger than Ruler Starfield. Places that were dangerous to Ruler Starfield might not mean anything to Lin Feng. Swish. At this moment, a sharp light instantly flew towards Lin Feng and Ruler Starfield. Even Lin Feng felt his heart palpitate. Ruler Starfield was on full alert, activating his Origin Supreme Treasure in a frenzy. Boom! Ruler Starfield's Origin Supreme Treasure actually could not withstand it. He was sent flying by the light at once, before flying directly towards Ruler Starfield's body. Once he was struck, Ruler Starfield definitely would not be able to withstand it. This is bad. Chaos Ruler. Save me. Ruler Starfield was aghast. This time, he was already sufficiently prepared, only to still encounter danger unexpectedly. Moreover, he was actually no match for such a simple attack. Ha! Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Actually, the power of this beam of light was indeed very strong, but he took the initiative to open his medium kiliacosm, allowing the light to enter his medium kiliacosm. The moment the light entered the medium kiliacosm, he completely closed the medium kiliacosm. Then, the river of spacetime instantly descended and enveloped this light, instantly obliterating it with spacetime power. Hence, it would not pose any threat to Lin Feng at all. However, to Ruler Starfield, this was a terrifying power that he could not withstand. If Lin Feng had not saved him, Ruler Starfield would be dead for certain. Of course, Lin Feng would not leave him to die. Lin Feng's medium kiliacosm opened slightly, instantly enveloping the light and defusing it. Ruler Starfield, are you all right? Only then did Lin Feng look at Ruler Starfield. At this moment, Ruler Starfield was rather disheveled. He also looked at Lin Feng in shock. He did not expect the Chaos Ruler, Lin Feng, to actually resolve the crisis with ease. Hence, Ruler Starfield was stunned. Lin Feng was probably stronger than he had imagined. He had insisted on getting Lin Feng to come to Ruler Yunku's abode with him, and now it seemed like this decision was very correct. If he had not been able to control his greed back then and entered Ruler Yunku's abode alone, he would probably have died a violent death. Thank you for saving me, Chaos Ruler. This abode is really too dangerous. There are dangers everywhere. Ruler Starfield still had lingering fears even now. He was looking around, afraid that he would encounter danger again. Lin Feng stared at the place where the light had appeared just now. It was a huge door, and on either side of the door was a faint Origin Supreme Treasure. These were true Origin Supreme Treasures. Lin Feng could tell at a glance that although they were not peak Origin Supreme Treasures, they could actually unleash power not inferior to peak Origin Supreme Treasures in the special environment. Actually, the reason was very simple. The suppression of the spacetime rule in Ruler Yunku's abode had already weakened by a lot, but that did not mean that there was no more suppression. On the contrary, there was still suppression. However, it was the suppression of Ruler Yunku's abode instead. Under such circumstances, it was naturally filled with danger for the other rulers to enter the Ruler Yunku's abode. However, to Lin Feng this could not be better. This was because as the spacetime suppression weakened, he could restore some of the spacetime Paksuver, and even mobilize the spacetime prison. Even if ruler Yunku's abode had suppressive power, so what? In ruler Yunku's abode, the strength Lin Feng could unleash was even comparable to a powerful origin beast. Let's go. These dangers are nothing much. Let's enter the treasure vault. Lin Feng's body was suffused with medium kiliocosm power, and it enveloped the surroundings. The closer he got to the treasure vault, the more the two origin supreme treasures around the treasure vault constantly emitted a terrifying light. However, they were all easily defused by Lin Feng. Soon, Lin Feng arrived in front of the treasure vault. With a wave of his hand, he retrieved the two origin supreme treasures. These were not origin supreme treasures that were very powerful, but they were still origin supreme treasures after all. Lin Feng naturally would not waste them. Open! Lin Feng shouted. He circulated his medium kiliocosm power before slamming his palm hard on the stone door. Boom! Immediately, the stone door shook violently, and traces of cracks appeared on it from the powerful force. Then, the cracks amassed like dense spiderwebs, and it collapsed with a bang.